Never let the sun set.
Been a long time. Long time.
Never let the sun set.
Been a long time. Long time.
Never let the sun set.
Been a long time. Long time.
Dingfelder, Goods, Maniscalco, Citro,
Here.
Miranda,
Here.
Carlson, and Vieira.
Here. Thank you very much. Council members, I have previewed this, I guess, if you will, in discussing this issue with council members in our capacity as CRA. I'm going to move tonight, and I guess pass the gavel whenever the time comes to, I guess it would be Councilman Miranda, in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare, given the state of emergency that was just declared this afternoon in Hillsborough County, move to continue hearings scheduled only for this evening. To the hearing scheduled for April 23rd evening session at 6 p.m., as there is presently only one alcohol hearing set to be set that evening. I don't come to this decision lightly, as I know it affects the public's business, but this is a decision that comes with the city of Tampa announcing a number of events being closed, and our governor, DeSantis, postponing events with crowds. In the coming weeks, we will formulate a plan in conjunction with legal counsel and the administration to address city business with as little disruption as possible, but also with as little exposure to the public as possible. This is a virus that we continue to gain more knowledge about day by day, and this is something that I will propose as chair of city council to take on a week-by-week basis. Next week's hearings, we will take next week, Monday or Tuesday, as we acquire more information. I urge everyone to follow the critical public health steps that have been proposed. We know that this virus is certainly something that can pose a significant threat to people, particularly our seniors. This is a small step that I suggest yields great dividends on precautions, or on as a precaution. And it is best to address public safety by going on a week-to-week basis starting this evening. I know this is something that is not easy to propose, and certainly for individuals who have been waiting some time for land use hearings, I certainly understand the significant burden that this could place on people on a day-to-day basis, but I certainly think this is the right thing to do. We've had a number of events that have been canceled, including recently St. Patrick's Day festivities, Tampa Bay Lightning games, Firestone Grand Prix, Tampa Bay Rays, et cetera, and I think by taking this council meetings and public hearings on a week-to-week basis, we do the responsible thing. And that's certainly what I'm trying to do here this evening. So council members, my colleagues and friends, I will gladly take your comments and thoughts on these suggestions. Sir.
One thing, and I talked to city attorney about this earlier, in the event that we are going to cancel next week, I think we ought to put a mechanism in place today so that we can cancel without bringing the whole entourage in. It would be a waste of city resource to bring everybody in. She was saying she was going to look it up, but maybe that the mayor could do it, or we could vote now to maybe give you authority. Andrea, did she give you any guidance on that? Just so we don't have, if we're going to cancel next week, let's make sure that we do it in advance, and so that we don't have to all gather just for 5 minutes to postpone.
Andrea Zellman, Legal Department. First, I would defer to Marty Shelby on this question. However, Gina and I did do our own research as well, because I think you had talked with her, and we couldn't find anything in your rules of procedure that would prevent that, or in the state statute. By the same token, we didn't find anything that would specifically allow this council to, by majority vote, designate or delegate that kind of responsibility to the chair. So I would like to get Marty's input on that as well. Again, there's nothing specifically prohibiting you from doing that. And I think if that's the will of the council, I can't imagine anyone would challenge that if a majority of you voted for that.
And before Mr. Shelby opines in, I agree with your sentiments, Councilman Carlson. You know, one thing that we may do, again, is to continue to keep city government moving forward is, again, talking with legal as we acquire more information on items such as the consent agenda, which keep the city moving forward as we acquire more information. So again, this is a situation which is literally developing by the day as it relates to what I propose doing with this council. It's not something that has a lot of foreseeability, because we don't know what's going to happen on Monday or Tuesday in terms of how we're going to decide to proceed, but we do have to keep the core functions of city council moving without a doubt. Mr. Shelby, if you wish to opine, sir.
I had the opportunity to speak with Pat Gleason from the Attorney General's office this morning by telephone. She's calling from Tallahassee, and we discussed the different kind of issues, the multiple issues that are raised by these exigent circumstances that City Council and everybody is facing. You do have provisions for emergency meetings of council. I had not been briefed, so what I'm hearing today is the concept of delegating it to the chair and authorizing him to, under the circumstances, be allowed to make the decision as to whether to cancel a regular meeting. That has not been done to my knowledge. I don't see anything that precludes it. I'm not aware of anything in the law that precludes it myself. But I will say this, what is the issue of canceling, particularly quasi-judicial matters, requires notice to be published in the newspaper, particularly second readings. I have not spoken with the clerk as to how many second reads you have on there. And if there's any continued items, then they have to be continued by City Council to a date or time certain to allow for proper notice. Otherwise, the item has to be renoticed. So the issue.
I think next week
is
not.
So
next week is not quasi-judicial.
What was that?
Next week I think is not quasi-judicial.
Oh, that's not true.
No.
Is not quasi-judicial?
Yeah, I'm glad, Andrea Zellman again, I'm glad Mr. Shelby reminded me. That was something I looked at as well, and I looked at the agenda. There are 2 review hearings, and there are, I want to say 5 second readings, which are quasi-judicial public hearings. So there are some matters that would need to be continued.
And no first readings, no vacates to your knowledge, or anything like that?
You know, I didn't look for them.
Okay,
I
so there
looked
may
for
be- there
ones
may be some
designated
additional
as
as well.
public hearings, yeah.
Okay, are you finished, sir?
For
For now, I guess, 'cause you'll be back.
Well, my last statement would be that obviously there are ramifications and maybe unintended consequences that we will have to deal with as a result of this, but it's going to be a continuing process, and we're going to be dealing things that we as a city and other cities throughout the state have not dealt with before, frankly, to this degree.
Yes, sir.
So,
Councilman
so as
Booth
I
and
hear, Mr.
Councilman
Shelby,
Citro.
we don't have any policies already in place for state of emergencies locally here for this council to meet or do anything when things arise, or is that what I'm hearing?
Well, frankly, sir, you do have a process in the rules of procedure, if you'd like me to read them, for emergency meetings. I could provide them to council, I could just read them. But basically what it says, briefly, emergency meetings of the council may be called at any time by the chair of the council or in absence or disqualification of the chair pro tem, and shall be noticed and recorded in accordance with state law. But in terms of case law that says best practices are 72 hours, talking with Ms. Gleason, she said, because it's exigent circumstances, you state the exigent circumstances, they can be very short notice. They're an emergency meeting with very short notice. What it says in number 2, it says emergency meetings shall be held for matters of an urgent nature requiring immediate action relating to the health, safety, or welfare of the city, where postponement to a time of a regular meeting, in other words, waiting till next Thursday, would result in serious injury or damage to the person, government, or community directly concerned. No business shall be transacted at an emergency meeting except that in the special call. So that would limit what you can do under the rules. And then it talks about if any ordinance are passed during an emergency meeting, there are certain requirements. And I have not had a chance, with all that's been happening today, is to review the procedures that were put in place, I believe, under the Iorio administration in your city code relative to the declarations of a city emergency and what powers that might give to city council. So I'm not prepared to opine on that.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Councilman Citro.
Thank you very much. Marty, consent agenda items keep the city running. Those can be done via telephone with a quorum.
Yes, sir, and what we can do, and this obviously is going to take coordination with CTDV and the administration. To remind you, the charter requires that the mayor is barred from signing any contract that has not been approved by the city council.
Yeah.
So until city council approves those resolutions that you do every week at a regular meeting under the consent docket, the mayor can't move forward.
Correct.
So in order to keep the city running in that regard, yes, you can do that. It's a legislative matter. It's not quasi-judicial. We can arrange for remote participation. We can also allow, as long as a quorum is present, doesn't have to be all councils, but everybody, the 3 who are not here could, if heaven forbid there's a reason that they don't want to come in or can't come in, they can participate remotely. And I've also talked with Attorney Gleason about the concept, which has been raised previously several years ago, about remote participation by the public, particularly in legislative matters. And when you get into quasi-judicial matters, we have a due process and we have a whole bunch of other issues. But to your question exactly, we can put processes in place that would allow for the consent docket to be able to be moved.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you very much for that question, because again, that's the issues that we have to inquire on next week, which is the information that we're getting medically, as well as the legal procedures that we can take to keep this city council moving forward in its public business as vigorous and as much as we can in a robust nature. So that's what I endeavor to do. Anyone else? And Mr. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. Councilman Carlson. No, you're fine.
The only other thing about tonight is that I don't know how many people from the public have already shown up, and one of my concerns is that this thing is going to be probably dragged out for weeks and weeks before we feel like we're in the clear. And I have a concern about the economic impact to our community with all these events being canceled, the planes being canceled, and everything. If we slow down all these real estate projects, it could be millions of dollars of investment that if they don't hit the cycle in the right way, the economy could wipe them out. And so I wish we had some mechanism to try to move those forward. I don't mind coming in if I'm not sick, if you all aren't coming in sick. But I think the issue is the public's ability to participate. And so if we could sort that out, I think the best we could keep moving this forward over the next few weeks would be better.
Yep. And that's my intent, is to move this forward as much as we can with the information that we will acquire in the near future in a way that balances out public safety along with the need of the public to have a city council in the city of Tampa that is moving forward on the issues that you just specified. I think we can reach that balance, but we have to know, given the information that we are acquiring, I mean, again, a state of public emergency was just declared here locally. We have to balance that out with the needs of this city moving forward. I intend to help reach that balance, but I think tonight, though, we certainly should take these hearings that we have and continue them forward. Councilman Dingfelder.
Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't realize you guys had started, and I was back there on the phone. So I apologize. I did not hear what the discussion was. I was clued in advance a little bit what the discussion might be. I don't really understand why we would continue tonight's hearings. I'm all for public safety and everything else, but it appears to me that the players are here. You know, if we've been exposed, we've been exposed. You know, because we are all here. You know, God forbid we should be exposed, but anyway. So I feel like, at least for purposes of tonight, I don't see any urgent reason to not move forward and just get these out of the way, keep them going, keep them in the hopper, as Mr. Carlson indicated. They're all important to each particular applicant. They're important. If anybody's here in opposition, you know, chances are they're here also, because nobody's told them not to be here. So I've had some discussions with Mr. Shelby and with Ms. Grimes, our city attorneys and city council attorneys, and just don't feel any compelling reason not to move forward with tonight. In regard to next Thursday, our regular agenda, I do agree, as long as the 7 of us are healthy and the clerk's healthy and that sort of thing, the most critical people are healthy, I think we should try and come in and do our regular agenda and make it as quick as possible. Probably eliminating or reducing a lot of staff reports, you know, at the ends of the meetings, and we always have, you know, 2 or 3 hours of staff reports and that sort of thing. Obviously, I think we should probably temper that so we don't have people feeling the need to sit there side by side, you know, in a closed environment. But I think we could handle the consent agenda, the regular agenda, you know, fairly quickly and make sure the city business continues as best we can. But so those are my 2 opinions on that. In regard to the third issue, which is the future of the zoning hearings and the quasi-judicial process, I think that between Mr. Shelby, Ms. Grimes, and her staff, and also with our technical staff, I think that they need to come up with an alternative mechanism, perhaps whereby even if the petitioners are showing up, maybe Mr. and Mrs. Jones are at home and they don't feel comfortable coming, maybe there's a way for them to call in or to Skype in and give us their opinion on those particular, you know, land use petitions. So that way we can accomplish keeping these land use petitions going, but at the same time, like I say, if people don't feel comfortable coming down, they still deserve some level of due process to be heard. You know, so maybe we need to look into that on future land use matters.
And I would say in response, and thank you for your remarks, Councilman Dingfelder, is this is a narrowly tailored step that I'm proposing. I will bring it up for a vote. If my colleagues on City Council disagree with me, you may vote against this motion. But I think taking the kind of attitude that if we, I forgot what it was said, but if we're sick, we're sick. If we get it, we get it. And again, I don't want to misquote you, Councilman Dingfelder, but we need to move forward in a way that is equipped with the information that we are supposed to have. Information continues to develop. Look what has just happened today. We have had a state of public emergency declared here in our county. We are having festivities and whatnot here canceled throughout the city of Tampa. I think that going forward tonight would lead to bad precedent and set a very, very bad public example here in the city of Tampa until we are equipped with more information. I feel very strongly about that, but reasonable minds can disagree, and I respect that, and I thank you for your comments, sir. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, Jim Cruz, City Clerk's Office. As far as the date, April 23rd, I'm advised there may be 10 plan amendment hearings as well on that agenda.
10 plan amendments. I thought, okay, I get it. I
At
get
5
it.
o'clock.
Okay,
You come in an hour earlier.
yes, and that's what we'll have
Unless
to
you want to
do.
allow more time.
Okay.
And come in even earlier.
I will. Is council ready to vote? Anyone?
Well, what is
Is
the
there a motion?
My motion is to continue tonight's hearings to April 23rd, where we presently have one alcoholic beverage item, given the reasons I've just stated. Ma'am.
Thank you. Kate Wells, City Attorney's Office. With regard to the plan amendments, we're trying to schedule for April 23rd. Those would start at 5 o'clock, and it's my understanding 6 of the 10 relate to parks, which this council has been seeing those amendments over time. So they wouldn't be 10 privately initiated amendments, only 4.
The issue would be, or the ones that most likely would be the time-consuming, if they would be at all, would be in the 4 privately initiated amendments.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make one more comment. I heard somebody say, it might have been you, Mr. Chair, that, this, in a matter of weeks, something might change for the positive. I'm not that optimistic. I think that we're in it for the long haul. In a matter of, I think if we get out of this in a matter of months, we'll be lucky. So once again, we've got, at least, 6, 7 petitioners here who want to, try and keep their projects moving forward. Again, I don't see a compelling reason, not to. And as I stated, the people are here with their petitions. If anybody's coming to object, they're here too. We're here. Everybody's here. I don't see a reason not to go forward. So,
And I do want to say, and before Councilman Goods, I would ask everyone to vote as you feel. If you vote against me on this, I give you my word of honor. I do not care. Please vote your heart. Go ahead, sir.
Did you want to say something?
I mean, I care, but in other words, I won't take it personally. Sir, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, and I apologize that we're all jumping up and down, but we've all been looking at these issues, as has Mr. Shelby all day. With regard to tonight, a couple things that I don't know if everyone knows. Charlie Frago posted on Twitter that this hearing was likely going to be canceled tonight, so it's possible that members of the public didn't come because they saw that. In addition, our office, because we heard what was happening, called the applicants' attorneys or representatives, so a lot of them probably didn't bring their teams with them tonight. So just wanted to advise you of that. And then before I sit down, I want to tie a bow on the last discussion about next week. Justin reminded me that in addition to the other quasi-judicial hearings that I mentioned that I saw on the agenda for next Thursday morning's hearing, there's also a bond hearing that was advertised and noticed. So I do think, and I think Mr. Shelby said this as well, that best practices would be for, at a minimum, a quorum to show up and continue the notice hearings if we have to, if you're not able to go forward with next Thursday's meeting. But again, don't, wait until that day to decide, correct?
And I don't think anything has ever been put up saying that it was going to be canceled, just that a motion was going to be made asking for that. So just for...
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back and look at his tweet, but the point being, he did put it out there in social media, so we all know how that works.
well, could I respond one thing in regard to any petitioners who might have been called and that sort of thing? Obviously, they could ask for a continuance if they didn't feel comfortable moving forward individually. So I think that would resolve that. If you're in agreement, Mr. Shelby.
Well, I was not aware that the press had somehow indicated to the public.
I'm not talking about the press part.
I know that. Well, obviously, if somebody feels compelled to have to make a record, they should do so if that's their intent. Obviously, these are very unusual circumstances, and this is an extraordinary thing that council's doing in response to an extraordinary situation. And I think that everybody who I've spoken to today recognizes that, including the people in Tallahassee. So that being the case, Mr. Chairman, I should just remind you, going forward, Council, the two things over which you have absolute control of scheduling are your ceremonial, your presentations, and your staff reports. So that could be done. And by the way, is it The week following that is a workshop, mind you, that if you look at the calendar, it is quite in need of yeah. Well, if you want to use I was going to use the word scrutiny. It's up to council what it wants to do. So, and there's a lot of questions that have been raised by a good discussion relative to things that are not presently being done in the city of Tampa that we have to find out what we can do and how fast we can do it.
Councilman.
Chairman, I was just thinking to myself, and I said, Self, you have to open the meeting if we're going to continue it. You can't continue something that's never been opened.
That's true, sir. As a matter of fact, and
So-
that was my question.
I got that at the University of Ybor City. And so whatever we're going to do, this should have a roll call, should have an opening of the meeting, and then the council can vote whatever they want to do. That's just my feeling. Nobody's paying me to say that.
Okay.
You got extra.
Should we also ask if there are any petitioners who are here who would prefer to go tonight?
And that's a good question, which is before we take a vote, we will need public comment, right, Mr. Shelby?
Yes, but following that, it would be wise to do what Mr. Miranda would suggest.
What I would like to do is because if we're looking at expediting tonight is,
Yes.
frankly, before taking a vote, before getting public comment on a vote that may or may not pass is, inquiring with each council member where you stand or.
Chairman, excuse me for saying
Yes,
one
sir.
thing. If we do have an emergency, that's something that could mushroom to something really, really big, then I understand the other side that they're here. Which is the one that we're hurting? The big picture or the ones that are here? The big picture is somebody may die. We don't want to say that, but I'll say it. So, listen, I saw TV last night, and it went from this to this to this. If $1 million is $1 million, or I'll give you a penny a day and double it for 30 days, don't take the million, take the penny. You're going to get more money. You don't believe it? Do the math. It's the same thing with this type of virus. So we're either going to do it or not do it. But if we're not going to cancel one, we're not going to cancel none of them. I won't show up for them.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Goods.
You know, a person who's been in public safety, people get scared when they hear bad things. People get scared when they hear bad things. My middle brother, who I rarely hear from, calls me, Jim, says, I know you're a single guy, but I need you to make sure you're prepared. You've got everything you need, canned goods, everything. I'm like, my brother's calling me. He must be really scared. So I say to the chairman, I get where you're going. I respect what you're trying to do. We don't know to know. Every hour things are changing. I've had several friends from other places call me, what do you think? Should we not have this gala? Should we not have that gala? And I tell them, you must have yourself on the side of caution. And I think that's what the chairman is trying to do, to make sure that the public knows that we are serious about what's going on. So whatever this council decides to do is fine, but I'm available no matter what. But if Mr. Chairman feels that in his heart that the public safety is at stake for this evening, I will support him.
And thank you, sir. And also, let me also indicate, I'm also canceling individual public meetings that I have. I have a March 24th meeting with the Equal Justice Initiative that we're canceling, a small meeting with maybe 20 or so New Tampa residents next week that I'm going to seek to cancel as well. So it's certainly something that I take very seriously. Mr. Shelby, before taking a vote, do we need to get public comment, sir?
If you're going to take public comment, well, the thing is, the question that I have is, if the motion is made to intend to do that, to continue them, rather than the motion being to continue them, if you want to get a consensus of council before moving forward, you can do that, or you can follow what it's two different questions, but my advice would be to follow Mr. Miranda's suggestion, and just right now, open the public hearings, do the housekeeping, because there are two that come off the agenda for different reasons. Ask staff to do that, take that action, and then determine what council's decision is going to be with regard to the remainder.
Okay, let's do that. May I have a motion to open the public hearing? We have a motion by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Let's go ahead and stand up if you're going to be speaking here tonight and prepare to be sworn in. If you aspire to speak tonight.
swear or affirm you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now what are the two items we have to have
Well,
removed, sir?
as a matter of fact, if we're going to be doing all the housekeeping, there may be items that have been available for public inspection in city council's offices. Do you have anything tonight, Mr.? Then I'd ask that those be received and filed into the record to be able
Okay,
to
may I
keep
have a
that in
motion to that
process.
effect? Moved by Councilman Citro, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Staff?
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Council. Ryan Manassi, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Item number 1 on your agenda cannot be heard because they did not perfect notice, so that can be removed from tonight's agenda.
May I have a motion to remove? Motion by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Citro. All in favor? Any opposed? Next.
Okay. Item number 8, there was a withdrawn letter I submitted to Mr. Shelby.
And I'm submitting to the
A
court.
request for withdrawal, so that is.
Move to
removed from
allow
the
number
agenda.
8 to withdraw.
Motion by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And next, sir, now that we've cleared that off, do we take my motion up, Mr. Shelby?
I believe that would be appropriate.
And do
it
we
would-
need public comment before that?
It's the chair's prerogative, it's council's prerogative. If there are people who feel as if they want to make an objection for the record,
I'll take it. I have no problem with that. I think that's the responsible, professional thing to do. What I would ask the public is, if you will be commenting on this, to move briefly so that we can move forward with at least my proposed intended purpose. So if you're coming forward, now's the time to comment on the motion. Sir.
Good morning, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the City Council and Council. John Grandoff, Suite 3700, Bank of America Plaza, on behalf of the petitioner. I believe it's on item number 2 this evening. Ms. Wells extended me a courtesy of a phone call this afternoon explaining the gravity of the situation and asking what our preference would be. And in an abundance of caution, we'd like to continue our hearing this evening. I've talked to the neighborhood organization that's involved and also counsel for the neighborhood, and everyone is in agreement to continue. We respectfully request April 23, if that's the council's pleasure. If it's a later date, that would also be fine.
Okay. And we'll move for that continuance, sir, once we're finished with public comment. Thank you, sir. Anyone else here to comment? Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Grandoff, what item was that, sir?
Number 2 on
Number
the
2.
agenda.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to continue number 2 to April 23rd? Motion by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Citro, and public comment.
Time, 6 p.m.
At 6 p.m.
Just include the time on all your motions, please.
Okay, yes, sir, at 6 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now, yes, sir, Councilman Dingfelder.
So I do see some other petitioners or their representatives here, and they're not necessarily getting up to speak. Do you want? Okay.
Of course, yeah.
Marilyn Healy.
And before Ms. Healy speaks, again, what Councilman Dingfelder said is true. Again, this is your opportunity to speak on my motion that I will be making to continue hearings until April 23rd. Please come forward at this time as we wish to hear from you on this. Speak briskly, but do speak. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'll be really quick.
Yes, ma'am.
We would love to move forward tonight on our item, certainly understanding the gravity that you guys are facing with all of this. Mine is unopposed, and it would be nice not to have to wait another month, but whatever you decide we'll live with.
And Ms. Healy, we know your name, but if you could give it to the clerk for the record.
Marilyn Mullen Healy,
Thank you.
Ackerman.
Thank you, ma'am. Next.
Kevin Robles, 2107 Chestnut Forest Drive, petitioner on 2 items this evening, and I object to the continuance, and would Pleasure County, the council would like to be heard tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else here wish to comment publicly on this proposed hearing or motion to continue hearings to April 23rd? If so, please come forward as we wish to hear from you. Ma'am.
Good evening. Brenda Lindsay, North Hyde Park Civic Association. I will not be returning to any council meetings until this whole thing is over. I came tonight, but I did get a notice that the meeting was canceled. So I came tonight to find out for sure. But in light of everything, I have a compromised immune system. I won't be back.
Thank you very much for your words, ma'am. We appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay. I will pass the gavel to our esteemed colleague, Councilman Miranda, and I hereby make my
give
motion.
floor to Councilman Riera.
I'm sorry, what,
You
sir?
gotta make your motion.
Oh, yes, sir. I hereby motion that we continue items tonight to April 23rd of 2020 at, Mr. Shelby, what time was that?
6 p.m.
At 6 p.m.
Okay, do we have to specifically name all the items or do it in general?
Well, I would suggest the items. What's going on? Thank you. I think because in the control booth, we're dueling with each other. I would suggest that for the purposes of the hearing, you designate the public hearings, because we do have another matter that's actually legislative and a staff report. So it would be items, 2 was done already, is that correct?
Yes.
2 was done, so it would be, in addition to 2, items 3, 4, 5 was withdrawn, 6, 7, and 8.
8 is gone, I believe.
5,
Oh, 8 is,
5 was not withdrawn.
oh, no, 5, it's 8 is withdrawn. Oh, my,
Yeah.
forgive me. 8 is withdrawn. Is it necessary for us to name the file numbers for the purposes of the record, or just refer to the agenda? Okay, I think then what we can do is we can just refer to the public hearings with 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, with 2 already being done.
I have a motion by Councilmember Vieira, second by Councilmember Goods, and the motion in essence is the continuation to April the 23rd, the year 2020 at 6 p.m. The following items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Are we going to do 8 or put 8 in it?
8 was withdrawn.
Withdrawn, all right. So those are the items that we have that are going to be withdrawn to April the 23rd. What about number 9?
Continued. We have to take up number 9 separately.
So those are the items that I just mentioned that are today's and the quasi-judicial that are for the rezoning matters of the city council. I have a motion again by Mr. Vieira, second by Mr. Goods. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. Motion passes 4-2.
Did it pass 4-2?
The motion
Okay.
carried with Dingfelder and Carlson voting no and Maniscalco being absent.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to say again, for that motion, I appreciate the vote and including the opinions of everyone else on this issue, because reasonable minds can disagree, especially on this issue. This is not necessarily black or white, it's gray, so I appreciate everybody's thoughts, and I mean that 110%. Now, Mr. Shelby, did I have to take up these motions on this, let's see, rescind the previous motion on March 5th to change the order of business?
Yes, because that is, unless. Yes, because you sent out a memo intending to take further action, so you want to be hold it in abeyance until we're able to take up your other motion.
Okay,
So it'd be
so-
appropriate to remove that.
Okay, so let's do motions, reports, et cetera. Councilman Dingfelder, anything, sir?
Oh, wait a second, before we close that up, what I mean is, I suggest you make that motion.
Before that, before,
Yeah, well, you can take it, you're saying whether to do it under information reports under new business. I see. My question to you, Mr. Chairman, is do you want to take up item 9 now? And item 9.
continuing it, yes. May I have a motion to continue item number 9? We have a motion by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Citro.
Is there a date for
Do
that?
we have, what would be the date for that?
Well, the question is, this is to remind council, this was the date that council, this was the item that where council was going to reschedule what is scheduled presently, unless a motion is made, for March, the workshop as a 2-hour item. So if it's.
Continue item 9 to the 19th regular morning agenda.
19th of, what are we, March, sir? Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, seconded by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'll take up the other motions at the end, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Dingfelder, anything, sir?
Just to follow up to what I was saying, and I probably don't need a motion, but just that Mr. Shelby and Ms. Grimes and the rest of the staff, look at these quasi-judicial cases in the future, because if we're going to, the possibility that maybe we can hold them, but if the public doesn't feel good about coming, like that young lady who just said that at the microphone, she'll not coming back, that we possibly look at some alternative ways for people to give their input without stopping progress and rezonings. So it's not even a motion, it's just a suggestion.
A fine suggestion. Anything else, sir? No. Thank you, sir. Councilman Good, sir.
Yes, sir. We had a fine young lady who was a good dear friend. She ran one of our programs in the city, multiple programs, brought home 2 national championships, world championships for the city of Tampa. Ms. Latrice Tracy Dawkins, community engagement, helping uplift athleticism and children in the community with further connection to the Copeland Park Saints in the north end of town and the Woodland Terrace playground with the hurricane program she instituted. I would like to make a presentation posthumously on her services on Saturday, March 14th.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Dingfelder. Or all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, anything else, sir?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Councilman Citro.
A few months ago, I had a fine young man shadow me here. His name is Mr. Charlie White. He was coming down here to watch us.
There he is.
Charlie, wave, say hello.
Fun night tonight.
Thank you, Charlie. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Councilman.
I have one, Mr. Chairman. The Hillsborough County Planning Commission is asking for a motion to set a plan amendment adoption for TA/CPA 1907E, TA/CPA 19-13, TA/CPA 19-14A, TA/CPA 19-14B, TA/CPA 19-14C, TA/CPA 19-14D, TA/CPA 19-14E, TA/CPA 19-14F, TA/CPA 19-14G, and TA/CPA 19-16 on the evening of April 23rd at 5:01.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything else, sir?
I'm not liking CPAs too much now.
Easy for you to say.
Councilman Carlson. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
This morning at the CRA meeting, we left a person out, and I made mention to Mr. Malcolm Kennedy, who was our West Tampa CRA manager. He did one heck of a job by the time he was here, dealing with the folks over at West Tampa, Mr. Robinson, and so forth. I'd like to give accommodation to Malcolm for a great job done.
Thank you, sir. And are you doing that on your own or in council? Or?
We'll do it. Council will get a date.
Okay.
Come back with a date where he can be here.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any other motions, gentlemen? Okay. Just very briefly, if I may, and I'll pass the gavel to Councilman Miranda. I motion to rescind the previous motion made on March 5th to change the order of business in the council rules of procedure that would schedule staff reports and unfinished business for 10:30 a.m.
I have a motion by
Second.
Councilmember Vieira, second by Councilmember.
Citro.
I know who you are. I just want to see if you're alive. Citro. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
And then,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you, sir. And then I motion to have staff reports when we do have city council in normalcy, so to speak, at 1:30 p.m. beginning, goodness willing, next week, March 19th, 2020, and to direct the clerk's office to add this notice to the addendum of regular meetings until the resolution takes effect and the agenda is officially amended.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Vieira, second by Councilmember Citro. Discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you all discuss this before?
I believe I sent out a memo on this, correct? Yes, I sent that, and I'll explain it if you'd like, Councilman. We previously were having staff reports at 10:30 in the morning, and the effect of that has been to move public hearings, like unfortunately the ones we just had to move this evening, that are supposed to begin at 9:30, 10:30, et cetera, going forward all the way to 1, 2 o'clock, and people having to wait a very, very long time. So I thought it wiser to maybe learn from my mistake of doing 10:30, staff certain time for staff reports and moving it to 1:30 so that we can get our public hearings out of the way. If we finish it prior to that, then we can certainly hear the staff reports before that. But that places an emphasis on these previously set and scheduled public hearings for which individuals are paying representatives, attorneys, et cetera, taking time off of work and having to wait here 2, 3, 4 hours beyond the time in which it was previously noticed and set for them. I think it's a small movement on the part of council that I think does a lot to accommodate and help the public.
So I guess my only question to Mr. Shelby is if it's on the agenda set for 1:30, and you're saying you can slide it earlier, and Mr. Shelby's always, I thought you were always saying you don't want to slide things earlier.
Well, first of all, I believe it was by the chair's direction with council's consensus to move staff reports. You can move staff reports under the approval of the agenda, and especially if you put it on the addendum, you can reorder your business once it comes before council.
It's loose.
And it's presently not listed for a time certain, I don't believe, at any time, except the clerk maybe put it down on the agenda as a courtesy, but it certainly appears on the addendum, and the chair always lets people know. Staff reports are not like quasi-judicial matters. Quasi-judicial matters cannot begin prior to the time for which they are noticed. They can always begin afterwards. And in this case, you can see how much later we're doing it. Staff reports can always be moved, subject to the administration's availability of staff to be here to make presentations. So what happens is, and I believe you said that in your memo, if your meeting does run early, council will be in contact with the staff to be able to make sure that the time filled after the business goes up to the lunch recess.
Yeah.
And the council will.
And it's to give priority to these public hearings that, again, people are taking time off of work for, et cetera. We will have public comment before. We will have commendations and ceremonials so that people who are here to address city council can get their time before us and have it in a calm manner. And then it puts later on in the agenda staff reports, which are very important to us, but we're going to give a little bit more deference to these hearings.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but just to clarify your comment, Mr. Chair, you had, in your memo, you had mentioned that it was your original intention when you made this memo that you were going to raise this issue initially to council, but because of the exigent circumstances tonight and the emergency, you're not going to take it up today, but to at least alleviate the problems with city council at 10:30, you at least want to handle that part.
This is going to be loose. It's nothing that will be on first reading, second reading, just to put it before council, because that's what I propose doing. And I don't like to act unilaterally, as we are all colleagues and friends.
So I guess my only comment, and that's fine, as long as there's some flexibility, in terms of if our meeting is going quickly, for whatever reason, that we can, goose them up and be out, perhaps before noon as a possibility. But the other thing I would urge us all to do is it talks about commendations and ceremonial, they just seem to get so long. And I would urge us to do two things, is to not do as many commendations, number one. If you can do the commendation at, wherever they are, whoever they are, give it out there if possible, number one. And number two is in regard to the public comments, I recall a day when we said there will be public comments for a maximum of 30 minutes, not 3 minutes for everybody and anybody who wants to come. Because frankly, as much as we want to give people public comments, we're hearing the same thing week in and week out that's not specific to our agenda like it used to be. And so I would say, 30 minutes, first come, first serve. If we need to tighten it up to 2 minutes each so more people can get in that 30 minutes, I just think we need to adjust that a little bit because those public comments are just going way long and that's what I mean.
And if I may, on your first point, Councilman, I tried to limit, and I think I did a memo about 10 months ago suggesting that we limit commendations to 2 a council meeting, which we generally have been. With all of our retirements in the city of Tampa and folks leaving, that's what's really gotten us off of track with that. With the public comments, I agree. I do give, as I think we all do, a level of deference to the public to come here, and if they want to come here and call us the worst things in the world, so long as they don't break protocol, as some of them do, by the way, call us the worst things in the world, I think we all give that deference as they're entitled to petition. I'm a little bit more tolerant on that, I guess, if you will, but your sentiments are well taken. I will say that, certainly.
Okay, I have a motion made by Councilmember Vieira. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Citro. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, anything else, Council?
Move, receive, and file.
Yes, sir. Motion by Councilman Miranda, second by Councilman Citro. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good one.
You are adjourned.
Yes, sir. And Marty, let's talk. Let's begin. Yes. Hey guys, thank you. First thing to